a dark motherfucker. An anti-hero. For sure. Like an ominous presence, exactly. Just like scary, like. And that's the way Spawn should be, right? Because he is. He's like a shadow. The cool thing I liked with Spawn was like he was so like self-loathing. Like he just hated himself. He hated the world. And I remember watching the and it was like the comics were like this, but I remember watching the animated series on HBO, and there were like, you know, like scenes where, you know, guys were getting robbed or assaulted, or women were getting attacked in alleys, and he didn't do anything. He'd just sit there in the shadows and watch and not even intervene. And I thought, oh my god, like, why aren't you helping? You know, like sometimes he just didn't give a fuck, right? And I mean, the other aspect of that, the catch-22, is if he did intervene, that meant using his powers, and every time he used his powers, the clock would tick down, you know, getting closer and closer to the apocalypse, if you want to call it that. So that was the thing, right? The more he used his powers, the stronger Satan's army was becoming. And I just thought that was so cool. And anyone that died by his hand would go to hell and become part of that army, right? And I just thought, oh, like it's so crazy. So sometimes he just wouldn't. Sometimes he just thought, fuck it, you know? There'd be some poor guy getting robbed in an alley and getting beat up, and he'd just sit there and not give a shit. But then other times he'd just fuck people up. He was trying to save it all for his personal mission, right? He was selfish. Like he wanted to save his powers, because that was the other thing. The more he used those powers, the weaker he would become as time went on. And he really wanted to save those powers to kill the guys that killed him, and ruined his life, right? So he was kind of selfish, really. You know, he wouldn't help people because he was too worried about his own agenda. Yeah, such a great series, man. Like, well written, and I mean McFarlane's art back in those days. Oh man, his art was just out of this world. Even when he did the Spider-Man series, when he worked for Marvel, fuck, his artwork's just phenomenal. I think the best Spider-Man was when McFarlane was doing the artwork. He just made him look awesome. He basically looked like Spawn without the cape. Spawn in a Spider-Man costume. For his wife, yeah, his wife was still alive, but his life was ruined, right? Like he got so screwed over. He made the deal with the devil. It wasn't, not really the devil, but one of the devil's, like, you know, minions, like a higher up type of dude. And I remember he made that deal saying that he could go back to Earth and be with his wife, as long as when the time came, you're going to be the general of my army, you know, because what's his name? Al. Oh, I can't remember his last name now, but his name's Al. Al Simmons. He was going to be the commander or the general for the army. That was the deal. But so then when he put him back on Earth, they put him back on Earth like how his body was when he died. He was like a burn victim. Like he looked awful, right? And he got fucked over. He thought he was going to be put back into Earth, present time, and be with his wife and live his life, right? Until the bell rang to go be the general for the army. But instead, they put him on Earth, and he looked like a fucking zombie. And it was like 20 years, it was years at least, into the future. It was like, what the fuck, you know? So his wife had remarried and had kids and all that stuff. Like, it was just like, what the shit? Like, he totally got screwed over. And it was like Spawn is actually really, as violent as it was, it's really a love story. And it was kind of like Beauty and the Beast. And he wanted to see his wife again and talk to her again, but he wouldn't, because he looked like a twisted looking fucking demon, you know. And yeah, it was just really rough. And then he ended up living with the homeless, right? He found a sweet spot for all the homeless guys living in the alleys, and that's who he lived with. And he just kind of sat there and crazy story, man. Crazy.